You didn't mess up. This isn't the universe punishing you. And no, you're not being tested. What if you're being shifted? Prepared, not punished. You're here for a reason. Subscribe to stay connected. Sometimes life doesn't fall apart. It rearranges. But from the inside, that rearrangement can feel like collapse. The people, the plans, the paths you trusted begin to fade. The systems you built start crumbling. And without warning, what once felt solid becomes soft. You tell yourself it's temporary. But in the quiet, fear starts whispering. Did I do something wrong? Am I out of alignment? But maybe, just maybe, nothing is breaking. Something is unfolding. Because when you shift internally, even just a little, the quantum field starts listening. And its response is reorganization. Precise, intelligent, and often disorienting. This is the part they don't talk about. The part of manifestation that looks like chaos. Not because you're off track, but because your signal has changed. You're no longer broadcasting the version of you that created your old life. You're tuning into something new. And everything that doesn't match that signal has to move. That movement feels like confusion, loss, stillness. But it's not stagnation. It's preparation. You asked for change, and now life is clearing space for it. Not by asking what you want, but by reflecting what you are. Because the field doesn't speak in language. It speaks in frequency, and frequency doesn't lie. When you vibrate with contradiction, saying you trust while feeling desperate, the field hears the truth beneath the words. So things pause. Not because you're blocked, but because the signal is still flickering. And this is where most people panic. They start pushing, chasing, forcing. But you're not here to force. You're here to feel, to stabilize, not to strive. And that stability, it doesn't come from rituals. It comes from presence. From becoming still enough to notice where you're leaking energy, where you're outsourcing your peace to the future, where you're waiting for the outside world to prove what your inner world is already becoming. The recalibration doesn't happen on your vision board. It happens in the silence between your thoughts. It happens in the moment you stop demanding and start allowing. You're not regressing. You're unlearning. You're detaching from the identity that was built for survival, not expansion. The part of you that equated control with safety. That thought stillness was weakness. That believed more effort meant more worth. That part is dissolving, not because it's bad, but because it can't carry you forward anymore. You're not stuck. You're suspended, hovering between who you were and who you're becoming. That in-between space feels strange because it's unfamiliar. Your old tools don't work here. Your old mindset doesn't fit. And the field, it's not ignoring you. It's waiting. Waiting for resonance. Not in your intentions, but in your vibration. Because the quantum doesn't respond to what you wish. It mirrors what you embody. And when your frequency is clouded with trying, with forcing, with gripping dash, the field feels that tension and pauses. Not out of punishment, out of coherence. You're not meant to bulldoze your way into alignment. You're meant to feel your way there, to soften, to breathe, to let go of performing trust dash and start embodying it. That's when the field moves. That's when the shift begins. You're not late. You're not lost. You're in the space between no longer and not yet. And yes, that space can feel hollow, like nothing's moving, like you're floating between versions of yourself. But what if this stillness isn't empty? What if it's charged? With intelligence, with clarity, with quantum alignment. This is where the field listens closest, not to your words, but to your being, to your willingness to stay still without shutting down, to your ability to sit with the unknown without running back to old noise. This is where timelines begin to bend, not in the action, but in the awareness beneath it. Most people try to escape this space. They call it stuck. They label it failure. But it's not stuckness. It's signal refinement. The more you try to rush through it, the more resistance you meet. Because the field doesn't respond to urgency. It reflects resonance. You don't become magnetic by doing more. You become magnetic by becoming still enough to feel what you're actually radiating. Magnetism isn't performance. It's permission to stop hiding behind effort and simply embody what's already becoming real inside you. The quantum field doesn't care how badly you want it. It responds to how fully you embody it. That's why chasing it doesn't work. That's why proving yourself doesn't work. Because when your energy says, "I'm not ready," even your most powerful affirmations get filtered through resistance. This isn't about proving you're worthy. It's about letting yourself receive. And receiving only happens when you feel safe enough to hold what you've been asking for. If you're still vibrating from fear, the field holds back. Not to punish you, but to protect the alignment. You're not failing. You're stabilizing. Stabilizing into a self that no longer reaches, but receives. That no longer begs, but allows. The version of you who trusts the silence. Not because it feels good, but because it's the space where power grows. You can't rush coherence. You settle into it. And once you do, once your frequency stops wavering, the field responds. Instantly. Not because you forced it, but because there's nothing left to resist. That's when life moves fast. Not when you push, but when you stop pushing, you'll know you're close. When the need to control starts dissolving, when you stop asking when, and start feeling ready. Because readiness isn't about being perfect, it's about being rooted. It's about meeting life from a place of alignment, not anxiety. And from that space dash, you don't chase outcomes. You anchor into identity. You live from the version of you who already knows it's done. Not because someone told you, but because your nervous system is no longer bracing. You're no longer depending on external proof to validate your internal shift. That's when you stop performing trust and start being it. And the field, it reflects that instantly. It doesn't need to ask, "Are you ready?" It hears it in your stillness. It feels it in your coherence. It receives the clarity of your frequency dash, and then mirrors it back. So if things still feel slow, heavy, or unclear, let them. Stop trying to move through it faster. Start allowing it to complete the process. This isn't waiting, It's becoming. Let the old dissolve. Let the silence speak. Let the recalibration finish, because what's on the other side isn't just a manifestation, it's a match between who you've become and the life that's been waiting for you to stabilize enough to receive it. More is coming, quietly, consistently. And if you felt a shift in you today, subscribing is how you stay in the frequency.